Right, shall we get started? Good afternoon, everyone. Many thanks for joining this afternoon. Hope you're having a good day. As it says, my name's Paul Gething. I work for the RS Group, and I'm going to talk today a little bit about the fundamental role of logistics in the path to net zero. My background is a broad operations consulting background. I've been in supply chain. I'm currently in an ESG role that's looking at how we turn ESG to our advantage for our customers and our suppliers. So I'm less interested in internally achieving our carbon zero targets. I am interested, but it's not why I'm not what I'm doing at the minute. But what I am doing is looking at solutions and services that our customers might find useful, might add some value and get us out of just the price conversation. But this afternoon I'm going to cover a bit of everything. It's a broad topic. I think it means many things to many people, as we heard from the panel this morning. There were lots of different opinions, and I think depending on which sector you're in and the maturity level of your company and your customer perceptions and your employees, it will depend on what you get out of this and also where you are on the journey. Because it is a journey, and I think it's going to be a long journey, as we said earlier this morning, over the next sort of tens of years. So in terms of what I'll cover, why is it important? I think everybody's on board with that, but just to reinforce the point, I'm going to look at moving from a strategy to an action plan. I'm going to look at the scope, so just making sure we think about that end-to-end value chain, not just within the walls or the stuff that we can control in terms of scopes 1 and 2. Think about the data, adopt a data-driven approach. Data's key in this. Making sure we take action and looking at some of the steps that we can take internally within the walls, also within the supply chain, and then broadly as an enterprise or as an organization. Looking at the behavior change that we need, because it is a change in behaviors, this. I think there's lots of pull, there's lots of enthusiasm. People in our company are pulling, and we're pushing an open door, but it does need to be coordinated, and for it to stick, I think we do need to change behaviors. And then finally, just a little bit of what RS has done. I'll intersperse on most of the slides some things that we've done internally and where we found it's worked or where it's not worked and some lessons, but I'll just cover off a slide at the end that just summarizes that. And most of what I'll talk about today is either in train within RS, or it's something that we're thinking about. We'll do questions at the end. So, in terms of why it's important, I think most people are on board with this, and obviously, if we are targeting net zero by 2050, and that is law now, it needs all of us to pull on this. And it's only it's less than 30 summers away now. And if the next summer is anything like the last summer we've had, it's even more of a reason to get on board. There are multiple drivers driving this, as we said earlier, and as you've heard probably throughout the day, there are drivers around customer perceptions and stakeholders. There are drivers around new employees and attracting talent with the right message about what your company's about. There are drivers around converging legislation, be it UK, be it EU, be it UN, be it global compacts. Excuse me. There are also drivers about individual company ambitions and wanting to be a differentiator, a leader, a laggard, or a follower, as we said this morning. But most of these drivers also equate to some risk. So if we don't get it right, and depending on where your company is in that journey, you'll be able to see straight away some of the risks we have around not securing investment from ESG-backed loans if we haven't got a good ESG performance, not attracting the right talent, not being able to run a supply chain because we have more and more one-off events. So multiple drivers equating to those multiple risks. Why supply chain? Well, the blue quote there, I think most people can appreciate supply chains can account for and do account for in most organizations 80 to 90% of the greenhouse gas emissions and the impact on our natural resources and our biodiversity. So we all have a part to play. And RS are a global high service level distributor. We distribute industrial products, we distribute electronics products, and we have an obligation. If we're out there distributing with a big supply chain, 2,500 suppliers, lots of parcels every day. We owe it to ourselves and our employees and our customers and our communities to make sure we're doing everything we can. And I think companies who are going to be responsible and take some ownership are also in the same position. So, why supply chain? We have an obligation, in my view. But it's more than just environmental. It's about doing good business and doing it in the right way. So there is a win-win here. If we can reduce our energy and reduce our consumption, if we can keep our machines healthy and we can reduce our waste, there's a cost saving there and there's a margin improvement. But also, if we are doing the right things well and being ethically in tune with what our customers are wanting and sourcing things ethically and making sure that we place a lot of value on our social value across our supply chains, there's also a win there as well. So again, customers, in our experience, are starting to expect this. They're starting to include it in tenders and bids. New talent and new employees are also looking at prospective companies with this in mind. So, but it is a win-win, reducing that cost, helping production, reducing the footprint, offering a competitive advantage. It all comes together. And as we said earlier, doing the basics well does equate to being more sustainable. And being more sustainable does equate to a better perception. And over the long run, will help us all achieve the net zero by 2050. But knowing where to start, my experience, having talked to customers for the last 3 or 4 months in my new role is, people get the fact that we need to do this, but actually knowing where to start is a challenge. Being able to balance those daily production challenges, inventory, spiraling costs, labour shortages, all of it together whilst trying to move towards a more sustainable business model is a challenge. And companies are struggling to know what to do and what to implement in order to turn that dial. So where to start? Well, from my perspective, it's simply being organised and structured and looking at converting that strategy into an action plan. And there is a series of simple actionable steps that we've taken with NRS. Each of these key steps have got sub-actions, obviously, and I'll cover some of those off. But essentially, it's about having a structured plan. And firstly, it's about making sure that sustainability is part of your business strategy. It's not an add-on. Again, I've heard that 2 or 3 times today in presentations. And we need to make sure that everybody understands, takes ownership, is incentivized, is aligned, and is empowered to make sustainability part of their company strategy and what they do. Otherwise, we will fail. We'll fail on the behaviours front, we'll fail on the priorities front. Secondly, it's about producing a plan. And again, depending on where you are in terms of your business, the sector you're in, the maturity level you're at, the customers you have, the types of things that you do day to day, that will depend on the type of plan that you need and have and where you focus, within the walls or with outside the walls, value chain. But making sure that you do think about that value chain is important. So again, I've got a slide on that later that just looks at, the end-to-end scope, because no one can do this on their own. We all need to work with our suppliers, our partners, and our customers if we're going to achieve this. Adopt a data-driven approach. We said that. Monitor and measure is key. If we haven't got the data, we're going to struggle on some of this stuff. And that's one of the lessons that we've found. And having data in the right format, having data that we trust and that's accurate, is also a real challenge. Taking action, so removing waste, reducing consumption. We recently did an air leak survey within our company, and we're working on one of our suppliers. And we found lots of air leaks. Unfortunately, some of them we found the year before, and we found the year before that. So actually taking action is one of the challenges, I think, and that's part of the behaviour change at the top, and making sure that we get people not just saying, but actually doing, and bought into the fact that action needs to be taken. The quote there at the top is linked to the doing the basics well will help be more sustainable. But the other watch out for me on this slide is through the conversations I've been having with customers and suppliers, there's a lot of people now entering this space. Customers are now seeing lots of solutions, consultancies, tools, platforms, and actually I think a lot of people are now beginning to get solution overload, and there's a bit of confusion about what solution's right for them. Similar to the standards and the reporting, there's a myriad of different standards and reporting around net zero. But the watch out for us is to just think about credibility, think about the decision-making process for the customer, and also avoid greenwashing. So the last thing we want to do is, there's a lot of companies out there at the minute, we're claiming we can do lots of things. But I think we all need to take a long, hard look and just make sure that we're all comfortable we can deliver that. So end-to-end value chain, so it's simple. Apply your sustainability lens across that value chain. So think about your facilities, think about your sourcing, your suppliers, your warehouses, your transport, your logistics. Don't just think about within the walls, or don't just think about the suppliers, or don't just think about the products. This is true end-to-end. Think about the end customer, think about the last mile, and move towards more efficient facilities. Make sure that you think about green logistics and transport. And I've got a slide on most of these topics, which I'll cover in more detail. Think about packaging. That's often where customers have the most to say on this topic because of all the packaging they get. And that's one of the things that we're hearing loud and clear from our customers around reducing the amount of packaging, not just making it recyclable, but try and reduce it. More responsible supply chain, so making sure we're working with partners and suppliers and everybody's working towards the same goal. Again, we owe it to our customers to make sure we've got an ethical supply chain that we're happy with, and that, from a social value perspective, it covers our customers, it covers our suppliers, it covers our communities. And finally, just a circular economy approach. So I think there's more and more now thought going into products and the design of products, thinking about the whole end-to-end life cycle of sourcing and making and distributing and using and decommissioning. But the more we can think about the circular economy, the better, I think, and reuse rather than remake is a big win. So, and for me, it's just trying to come up with an integrated approach that starts to pull these things together, because there's lots of intertwining and overlaps between some of these topics. Last line, you're not alone. So I've said this before, and use your people, your partners, your suppliers, and it's the power of the team that's going to make a difference from my perspective. So moving into a bit more detail, so monitoring and measuring. And as we said here, data's key, and making sure you've got the right data in the right format to drive insight, decisions, and action is critical. And data is one of the world's most powerful assets, and we should be leveraging that data. But it's a double-edged sword from our perspective, because having the data in the right format, at the right points, to the right granularity that we believe and trust is a challenge, and has been a challenge, particularly when you look at that scope 3 and working with suppliers and partners. However, it is key. Unless you can understand your footprint, your carbon, your consumption, unless you can understand what your operation emits and consumes, you can't start to understand how to optimize and where and how to intervene, on what priority basis, and what to do first. So data is key. And there are 6 points there that I'll just run through. So think about the different types of data and the different sources. So these could be within the walls data, so it could be plant and equipment, cost performance, utilities, it could be CAD drawings, it could be images, camera images, thermal images. But think about within the walls and the types of data that you can pull together to understand how well that facility or that production line or that shuttle machine is actually performing. Think about your wider supply chain and working with suppliers and getting hold of volume data and weights and CO2 emissions and transport modes. Again, more and more now, I think suppliers are being pushed in to capture this information, and we'll all, as we said earlier this morning, we'll all start needing to disclose more as we move forward. So think about also, from a source perspective, time horizons. Think about historical data, real-time views, current views, but also what's going to happen in the future. Think about that predictive view. The next boxes are all around capturing data, so having the solutions and the sensors and the telematics and the IoT, all of that in place, at the key points in your process so that you can capture the data. And the technology is there and has been now for a while. I think there are about 15 billion sensors or IoT connections now into the web. That's going to grow to 27 billion plus by 2025. And I think particularly that will increase as 5G comes into play. So, for me, it's about making sure you get to the right granularity of level. So if you're looking at your process and your production line, making sure you have the right meters and loggers and sensors on those individual bits of equipment, not just the end-to-end piece. The next one on here is around integration and analyzing and combining. So be able to combine that data and integrate it, be able to enrich it, be able to manipulate it so that you can get some insight. Look at tools such as visualization tools and dashboarding so that you can understand from a charting perspective, but also look at tools like digital twins and simulation tools so that you can run simulations and check and then understand the footprint, and you can do what if scenarios and what if I change this, and then you can start to understand where to intervene and how to intervene and what those benefits might be. And you can also start to apply carbon pricing and cost per CO2 to start to understand what the payback is of different initiatives. And you can also start to build business cases internally so that you can start to convince the execs that actually investment is needed and actually does pay back. So that's one of the challenges that we've noticed so far, is being able to have the information to create those business cases. Take action, obviously, is a key piece here, and being able to implement that action. Monitor and predict, so obviously once you've made your changes, monitor your process health, understand performance drift. And lastly here, just think about predictive tools. You know, we've had a study done that suggested you can save up to 15% in terms of energy consumption and usage if you can start to use tools to help you predict what energy you're going to use and when, so that you can start to think about those tariffs and also the ways of working and the shutdown procedures for the different machinery. So there's something to think about there. Last line, process optimization is no longer just about efficiency or availability. So there is a sustainability piece to this, and it is a worthwhile outcome. And if you use carbon pricing, and if you use the potential for carbon tax and legislation, and if you start to think about automation and reducing the reliance on labour, and if you start to think about the investment criteria and the plus points of reducing your CO2 emissions, there is a real business case to be made. So, but it does require the data. So taking some action. So this focus is within the walls. So this is within the facilities. I've split this between the facilities and then the broader supply chain, which is my next slide. So control the controllable. So the first thing that we learned was look at your facilities first. Don't think about your supply chain necessarily first. So look at your scope 1 and 2. It's a lot easier to get at, and it's easier to get some quick wins on the board. Check your existing equipment. Sounds obvious, but you know, we found a load of low energy drives that were set up and optimized for low energy when they were put in, but the plant and equipment around them have changed and they were no longer set up as low energy drives. So, you know, they needed tweaking. We had a lot of old motors, inefficient motors that were IE2s, and we're changing those to IE3s and 4s. We can get some software control on them as well now, so it's a lot more efficient, a lot more effective. So there's a big piece around equipment. Capture your data as per earlier, sensors and datas and loggers, and then start to target that waste. So, you know, use sensors and IoT and meters to understand what bits of your equipment is consuming what bits of energy, where you're leaking energy, leaking air leakage, for example, is a good one. Think about where you can use energy efficient products. A lot of suppliers are now showing accreditations for products. They're showing which products will be more efficient. So low energy motors and drives, low energy lighting, all help you to improve your operation. We are also looking at bundling now as well. So where we can get sustainable products. We can link 3 or 4 together that will solve specific problems, provide a bundle, and also provide the in-use benefits, so the demonstrable in-use benefits. We're talking to suppliers about life cycle assessments and understanding from a carbon perspective what that will give us. We're looking at putting carbon calculators on the website so that customers can easily see the benefit. They can also use searches to find products that will be more sustainable and give them lower energy use and requirements. And that way we can start to change behaviours and start to change the buying process, so that when procurement look at what they're going to buy, it's not just cost, but it's also what benefits in terms of sustainability and CO2. Automation. Automation's key and has been for us and still is for us. So we are looking at automating our packing machines. We are looking at automating our processes where we can, and goods to person, for example, as well. Digitalization, so we talked about, again, that this morning on the panel. It's a good place to start for businesses who want to be more sustainable. There's a couple of areas here we've found useful. One is 3D printing, so additive manufacturing, printing spares on site, so that we don't need then the big supply chain to transport the spares in. It's very cost efficient, and also you don't get much waste. It's not for everyone and it's not for everything, but you can print some components now. So, engage your suppliers and partners, be demanding. One of the things we've found is that there is a burden on suppliers to play in this space, but unless you're demanding, you won't find out all the benefits. So I think the suppliers are beginning to start, at least the bigger ones are beginning to start and shout about what their products can do. But I think working with suppliers and partners to help, as I said, no one company on their own can fix all of this. Last line is around moving energy sources, so looking at carbon-free renewables, and the traditional ones are great. Make sure they're gold standard. You can look at wind, you can look at solar. You can generate your own, you can purchase, you can do PPAs, so combine your purchasing with other companies and go direct to a wind farm. That's all good. The other thing here is, what we found is it's better to reduce your energy before you try and go out to renewables. So one of the things we've been looking at is motion and kinetic energy to see if we can gather energy from our process, be it vibration, be it temperature, and convert that into usable energy, so that when we convert to renewables, we aren't looking for as much energy. So, broader supply chain, so removing waste from the broader supply chain. This is about decarbonisation. It's about end-to-end scope 3. This is hard. It's a lot more difficult and challenging than scope 1 and 2 within the walls. I think the mix and the scale of supply chains for most companies means that the parameters are varied and a large number. And from our perspective, we've had to put a lot of work in to start to unpick our supply chains. We've been looking at embedding a greener logistics model, and we use Cooper software and some AI, and we've created a digital twin. And we started to pick areas of our supply chain, and we've started to model those areas and start to simulate, what if we changed our network location, what if we changed our transport mode, what if we changed our suppliers. And we started to identify some wins, and we found that transport in general is about 20% of our total emissions, and we've been able to make a 20% year-on-year reduction for the last couple of years through understanding and network modeling our supply chain. One of the things we've done is put all of our inventory on the sea to Asia. So at one point we were flying it, and it's now on the sea. I've been on the sea for 18 months, which is great. The costs are still higher than they were before COVID, but it's a lot more efficient and effective. It needed some planning on the inventory side to get to a place where we could do that, particularly when we had some challenges with the ports, particularly around Australia, but that's now fixed, and we're now seeing some wins from that. So So think about that digital footprint and digital twins. Think about your transport modes. Think about your sites. So we've changed the network layout as well, and we've changed some storage capacity so that we can put some more inventory closer to the customer, to make sure that we save on carbon emissions when we transport, but also to make deliveries more reliable and consistent, and also improve our service levels. So that's another thing, and that's what the digital twin and the AI software has allowed us to do, is to run those scenarios, ask those what-if questions, and understand those benefits. And again, by applying a carbon price, you can start to create a benefits case. And also, as we said this morning, or as the panel said this morning, there's a big risk reduction if you've got inventory closer to the customer as well, and particularly if you understand the different levels of your supply chain, and you've got the right levels of safety stock, obviously. So fuels is another one. So we've been looking at electric. All of our internal fleet, in terms of cars and things, we're pushing people to be electric. We're also now making sure that we look at partners and suppliers who have electric vehicles, and we're also starting to look at what's next after electric, which is probably going to be hydrogen, I think. But I know there's still some challenges around that. So that's one of the things we're doing. And obviously consolidation. A big thing for us has been to look at how we can consolidate deliveries for customers, giving customers more choice. And if we can get customers away from just the standard next day tick box, and ask them, when do you need it by? Because if you can give us 2 or 3 days, we can actually consolidate this, and we can make it a much more efficient, greener delivery. Then that's where we want to be. The other point here is on the packaging side. We've been offering customers what we call eco-tote deliveries. So instead of a daily delivery, we put everything into a plastic reusable eco-tote once a week, no packaging, and we just ship that to the customer. So that's also been a winner. Lots of customers like that. Reduces packaging, reduces CO2. We've got a fast-track process still, in case anything comes out that's urgent. But the eco-totes piece has been really useful. Also on packaging, I talked about the automated packing machines earlier. We've also implemented a recyclable Jiffy bag. So a lot of our orders are quite small, and we had a lot of single-use plastic. So we've implemented a recyclable Jiffy bag. We're still looking for that silver bullet on packaging. I think everybody is. We've got people looking at different polymers and different ideas about what might be compostable or recyclable, reusable. We haven't come up with it yet. We've reduced the amount of packaging. We've got the automated machines that cut the boxes to size, so you use less infill. But I think the jury's still out on how we properly address the packaging piece. Create a more responsible supply chain. So I said earlier that it's about working towards those same goals, getting everybody lined up. We've been working with our suppliers and our partners. We vet our suppliers. We have standards, and we make sure that our suppliers are meeting those standards. We work jointly with the big suppliers to jointly set those objectives as far as supply chain targets. We do physical inspections on some of our own brand high-risk suppliers, be that from a geographical perspective or be that from a product and a materials perspective. So, creating that responsible supply chain has been really key for us, and making sure our suppliers come on our journey with us and are bought in as well. And then lastly, the circular economy approach. As I said, thinking about the design of the product and the product life cycle through the end-to-end process for a product, including design, build, store, distribute, use, decommission, is critical. We're now talking to customers about recycling schemes and turning old PPE into new gloves or new boots. We're talking to customers about recycling electronics and extracting components. We're talking about recycling schemes with companies who create new products and then give money to charity. There's a cabling company who've got a chain flex. And it's something that our customers are coming to us and asking us for. And we're seeing it more and more in tenders and bids. And finally, just on the circular economy piece, I think refurbish and repair That's another thing that our customers are asking for. There's obviously some challenges there around warranties and bits and bobs, but we're confident we can fix that. And particularly for consumables and power drills and power tools, that's one of the things that we're definitely looking at now. So, changing behaviours. 70% of change initiatives fail, largely because we don't bring the people with us. So don't forget the people if we want to be successful. So make sure we stay focused. So there's lots of enthusiasm on this topic, but avoid the scope creep and keep people focused. Break things into small chunks. There are some big topics here, but by breaking things into small practical steps, we can stay on top of them. Make sure we're set up for success, clarity of roles, the right capacities, the right qualities in the team, the right targets and objectives. Empower teams with the insight and empowerment, so making sure that they've got the data so that they can own decisions, make decisions, see decisions, and feel part of the process. Encouraging and incentivizing people to deliver, so making sure that projects have sustainability goals and milestones and targets. Our company bonus for everybody has an element on ESG performance, so we're all in this together. Making sure that the company scorecard clearly covers it, making sure that we've got OKRs and personal objectives signed up to ESG. Remove those silos. So a lot of companies I talk to struggle with the interface between the operations and facilities teams and the buying teams because they never align and get the right products to do the right job. So one of the things that we've been looking to do is to work out how we can work better with companies and get people talking and buying the right products. And then finally, just give them the support, provide that leadership. So, finally, so RS can help. A lot of what I've covered today we are doing. We are committed to helping customers and suppliers. We're committed to helping increase their efficiency. We're committed to helping them reduce their environmental impacts. And we're committed to raising those standards and supply chain standards and giving them the confidence that we're sourcing the right products for them in the right ethical way. Our sustainability performance and credentials is strong, and it's not perfect, but we've worked hard for the last couple of years. We're now EcoVadis Platinum, so that means top 1% of companies. We've shown year-on-year improvements on packaging, carbon and waste intensity measures. We've got 92% globally of renewable energy across our sites and facilities. So we're making some progress there. We've already got solutions such as the RS Industria solution live and being used by customers. So that's a sensor and an IoT solution that we can track equipment and track the performance of plant and equipment and understand predictive maintenance, understand energy consumption, wastage. We can understand water consumption as well and wastage. So we are already looking at expanding that into carbon, so converting some of those numbers into a carbon number and broadening out the scope from the sensors and loggers to incorporate more parameters. And then we're doing some more solutions. The Better World product range is a flag on our system for all those products that have got accreditations that say they're sustainable. So we're starting small, and there's about 40 different accreditations. We've been through them and checked them. The next step after that will be to explain the claim, and is it reducing energy? Is it ethically sourced? Is it from a reusable material? Sustainable operations is built on the RS Industria piece and adding to that, and then recycling is what I covered earlier. So, there's lots going on from RS's perspective, but this is a big topic. It's going to be here for a while, and we all have a fundamental part to play, I think, from a supply chain perspective in the path to net zero. So that's it from me. Does anybody have any questions? I hope that was useful. Stunned silence. That's okay. If you want to grab me later, you know where I am. Sorry. I was going to say I'm going to need my glasses on, but I've already got them on.
I'm thinking this too as well. I was wondering which tool do you use to measure the data on the carbon impact in transportation? Is it an in-house tool
Yeah. We use a mixture. We do use Cooper software. What used to be called Supply Chain Guru from Llamasoft. We also use some of our own data and some of our own analytics through Power BI. And we work with suppliers to get their data to make sure that we've got as robust a set of data as we can. But this is one of the challenges we've got. It's not as accurate as it needs to be moving forward. So we're always looking for more tooling and better ways of getting the actual data. So, we've got one supplier that, we can get the telematic data from the trucks, and we can work out through route optimization software, which again, we've got, we can actually start to get a much more accurate view. So I think Scope 3 is a real challenge, and getting into the data from a supply chain perspective. I don't think anybody's probably got a good handle on it end to end, and I think we need to fix it if we're going to hit some of the targets we've got. Yeah. Okay, thank you.